City submerging cars and flooding basements.
So it's not just rainwater that's going into your basement.
Oh, it's not just rainwater. It's sewage. I don't have to spell it out to you, but it's a four-letter word that starts with S.
And drivers totally caught off guard on the waterlogged roads. Some subway stations also hit. Plus,
I think what we're hearing is just a lot of curiosity, a desire to learn more about what's proposed.
learning more about sidewalk labs. Residents get to ask questions about the new smart city being planned for our waterfront. And getting up close with the moon. We'll introduce you to a woman who loves space so much, she built her own observatory. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. What a drenching we got as heavy rains hit the northwest corner of the city hard this morning. Cars submerged, basements destroyed, and a subway station drenched. Our Greg Ross takes us through today's damage.
Unable to drive through the floodwaters, this car had to be lifted out by heavy tow truck operator Sonny Subra. You literally had to use a winch and pull that car out?
Yeah, literally my truck is a rotator, so I can swing my boom in there and then put a two winch and then strap. Fire department, Toronto Fire Department help us out to put the straps and everything.
This is what the car looked like once it was back on dry land. Subra says it's a hard lesson for the driver who attempted to go through the water.
You gotta be some common sense to when you see a water, you stop, and you don't know how deep it is because it's a dirty water and you can't see. It's not a clear water.
The only thing stopping this water from spilling out onto Highway 401 is this barrier. And just to give you an idea of how deep this water is, this barrier is about 1 meter high and the water is just centimeters from the top.
Oh my God!
Scenes like this played out all over the city. This video was shot by a motorist at the intersection of Jane and St. Clair. This is what it looked like inside the Jane Street subway station as water poured through the ceiling. When you came down here this morning, it was completely flooded.
Yeah, it was completely flooded.
Claudia DeSanto says she and her neighbors on Cordella Avenue had water pour down their driveways, through their garage, and into their basements. So it's not just rainwater that's going into your basement.
Oh, it's not just rainwater. It's sewage. I don't have to spell it out to you, but it's a four-letter word that starts with S. So yeah.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Ricardo Mota says for the second straight year, flooding forced water to pour out of the sewer system near their homes.
This year wasn't as bad as last year, where last year was about 5 feet of sewage in all our basements.
That man told me he actually had contractors in his basement working on damage from last year when the flood hit today. A lot of the work that they had already done was destroyed in today's flood, and he says now he has to go back to his insurance company to figure out where they go from here. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette is here with her first look at the forecast. And Colette, I know where I live, I saw a lot of that rain this morning, but it wasn't happening everywhere in the GTA.
No, it was not. So in some respects, it was localized in that sense when we look at kind of geographical areas. But when we talk about localized, we also talk about that with like thunderstorms where you're only getting some isolated ones. Well, I just want to take you back across the radar, the playback from all the way back to yesterday, in fact, because we had to deal with the remnants of Barry coming our way. So there was that moisture, an abundance of moisture. We know the atmosphere was very juicy because we had the humidity. And then the Great Lakes, hey, they're another moisture source here. So if we go in for a closer look, you can see some of the heavier amounts that came through, especially northwestern portions of the city. And that's where it got hit, especially between that corridor of about 8 and 11 a.m. this morning. All this area through here around the 401, all the way up to 427, yet over towards Pickering. Talk about localized. At that time, when the city was getting hammered, just a little further east, the conditions were much quieter. Not necessarily the case earlier, but at that time. So what's ahead? How about a quieter night tonight? A little bit of patchy fog. Certainly that potential's there. Through the day tomorrow, though, the air mass is going to feel a little more comfortable, and then it's late day tomorrow. We get into the risk of seeing, and I mean late day, like tomorrow late evening into the overnight, the chance for the GTA to get into some scattered showers or thunderstorms into the evening hours for southwestern Ontario. It could be a bit earlier. Overnight tonight, though, 20 degrees. Tomorrow afternoon, 28, 34. I know that's still a significant humidex, but much more comfortable than where we're going for Friday and Saturday. I'll tell you about that coming up, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
2 men wanted in the sexual assault of a woman in a downtown elevator are now under arrest and facing charges. Police say last Wednesday, 2 men pulled a gun on a woman in a condo elevator at Bathurst and King, robbed her, and then dragged her into a stairwell where they sexually assaulted her. Both men are facing multiple assault, robbery, firearms, and forcible confinement charges. Well, Premier Doug Ford is giving up his cell phone. It's something he's long touted as a way for Ontarians to connect with him directly.
I'm making sure that we take care of the grassroots people, and they don't need access to Doug Ford. They call me on my cell phone. I get hundreds of calls a day. Yep. I return their phone calls.
As he was saying there, he freely gave out his cell phone number, but his office says he's had to cancel it because of the volume of calls lately. It blames certain special interest groups for launching coordinated calls in recent weeks that made the phone impossible to use. The Premier's office says people can still contact Ford through his office email and official phone number. Well, 9 dogs died overnight in a kennel fire north of King City. The flames broke out at the North Toronto Canine Centre and burned itself out. Employees only realized what had happened when they got in around 8:30 this morning. Police are not treating the fire as criminal at this point, but they also haven't yet determined the cause. A man found not criminally responsible for killing his roommate with a meat cleaver has fled the country. Jubin Kong had been under a detention order at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health at Queen and Ossington. On Monday, police issued a press release to say Kong went missing, but he was already long gone. Chris Glover reports.
When Jubin Kong killed his roommate with a meat cleaver in 2014, he suffered from schizophrenia and was off his medication. Court documents show he was found to be incapable of knowing what he was doing was wrong and therefore was not criminally responsible for the killing. Since then, he's been under a detention order living in the forensic unit of the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, known as CAMH. On July 3rd, while on an unaccompanied day pass, he never returned. The hospital says he was reported missing to police that evening, but it took nearly 2 weeks for the public to be notified of his disappearance. Police won't comment on the case, but we know Kong boarded an international flight on the same day he was reported missing by the hospital. He had repeatedly told authorities he wanted to return to China to be with his mother.
If they knew 2 weeks ago, then arguably the way the system should work is the word should go out.
This former member of Canada's parole board says even killers found not criminally responsible are allowed day passes, but he thinks institutions like CAMH have too much discretion.
CAMH has moved quickly on removing some of the restrictions that existed for Mr. Kong.
So in your opinion, do you think that they have been too lenient on patients like him?
They work in a clinical model all the time, and in my experience, that results in people returning to the community. Certainly some people, not all NCR offenders, but certainly many of them returning to the community in very quick order.
Last year, Kong was approved to live in the community under 24-hour supervision. In his most recent detention review, May of this year, it says he continues to pose a significant threat to public safety. The major fear was, without hospital oversight, he'd stop taking medication and slip back into seriously harmful criminal conduct. Despite that, the 2019 decision removed the 24-hour supervision stipulation in the community. Today, Toronto's mayor called for answers and transparency, but the hospital at the center of his detention isn't taking questions from the media, instead releasing a statement to announce an internal investigation into the rare incident is underway. In light of this incident, the physician in charge here at the hospital is now going through and reassessing all of the patient passes and privileges, and I'm also told that they're beefing up security in the forensic unit. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, many people in our city are still trying to process the massive project Sidewalk Labs is proposing to build along the waterfront. Tonight, the latest in a series of public consultations aimed at breaking down what's in those smart city plans and helping officials decide if and how the project should move forward. Taylor Simmons went to tonight's meeting.
We're really here to try and get you the information that you need.
A tough task for organizers, seeing as the master plan submitted by Sidewalk Labs is 4 books and 1,500 pages long.
We have not read it all yet, so we're still digesting. I suspect people are also still digesting, but we want to hear what people think.
Waterfront Toronto started working with Sidewalk Labs in 2017 to reinvigorate some downtown land. In June, the company announced its vision, a high-tech city within the city, with affordable apartments, renewable energy, and smart technology. What surprised many, the scope of the proposal, about 70 hectares larger than expected.
It is a very comprehensive approach to really looking at all facets of an urban development in a neighborhood. So I think that's sort of why there's so many pages.
We asked them to come up with a design idea and proposals for a 12-acre site, and out of the sudden we're talking 190 acres, and that's what we are being consulted on, and there's something wrong with that.
Tonight's session allowed residents and city officials to break out into small groups and go over each element of the plan. Of continuing concern, privacy in a smart city, the plan calls for sensors monitoring things like traffic, pedestrians, even air quality.
We chose an innovation partner to think differently and come up with new ideas, so that's controversial.
I see the benefit of it. The question is, who owns the data?
Sidewalk Labs has provided some answers, but some say they're still not convinced.
I need a lot more information.
One of the main messages tonight, nothing about the plan for this area is set in stone. After public consultations, if Waterfront Toronto does give it the green light, it'll still have to go through all the same approvals from the city. Meantime, if you want to have your say, the next public consultation happens on Saturday at George Brown College. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Has been my deepest desire. With great support, this was built last year. Everything is in place, it's just the fine-tuning, and it so happened that it just came exactly in time.
A Toronto woman built her own observatory, and as she said, it's done just in time for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. Coming up, her personal connection to that historic moment.
I never dreamed once that I would have the fortune of holding a bit of this magic moon.
Well, scenes like this repeated across the country tonight as a number of climate change activists held rallies calling for this fall's federal election campaign to feature a debate devoted to a Green New Deal and what they consider to be the climate crisis. The protest took place outside CBC stations, even though technically it is a coalition of broadcasters and not just the CBC that runs those debates. In a statement, CBC spokesperson Chuck Thompson wrote, quote, "We know climate change is an issue that is important to Canadians, and it will be reflected in CBC News election coverage approach. We have covered climate change extensively and will continue to cover the issue." Separately, it's the Debate Commission who determines which media organization will host the official leaders' debate. Any decisions around topics of the debate would be driven by the editorial group that will be producing it. New York police putting out some pretty alarming video today of an officer finding a driver passed out behind the wheel with cannabis and an open bottle of rum inside his car.
I got a car sitting at a stop sign, but he's passed right out. There's a blind intersection to him. Just scared he's going to get off the brake or something and fly out the intersection.
You clearly had something. I can smell it in your breath. Okay, get out of the car. Okay, put your hands on your back.
Well, this all happened in the township of King around 6 a.m. on Sunday. York Regional Police say the officer made numerous attempts to try to get the 19-year-old to open his eyes. He's now facing several charges, including impaired driving. Well, with this week's 50th anniversary of the moon landing, we're hearing from many people inspired by the achievement. Tonight, we'll meet one woman so taken with that chance to hold a moon rock, she developed the love of astronomy and built her own very impressive observatory at her cottage. Our Paul Borkwood spoke with her.
What should I title you as? Like space enthusiast or?
Enthusiast. I love what you just said.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is. I'm crazy. I'm a curious person of deep space. When I was a little girl, I spent a lot of time with my grandma in a little village called Gorai, which was off Bombay, which is today's Mumbai. There was no electricity over there. The air was fresh, the word pollution wasn't heard, and the night sky was so clear that the stars glittered like diamonds. But I never dreamed once that I would have the fortune of holding a bit of this magic moon. October 26, 1969, the astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins were to visit, and it was a huge success. My boss gave me the biggest surprise. The next thing I knew, he handed over to me the moon rock to hold. And he took a photograph. I was so amazed because that little piece of rock just dazzled under the sun. This has been my deepest desire. With great support, this was built last year. Everything is in place, it's just the fine tuning. And it so happened that it just came exactly in time. The telescope is 1.5 times my size. The weight, enormous. We need 3-4 people. Actually, it was a struggle building the observatory to put a 17 solid steel pipe, cutting right down to be sure it's on rock and filled with 3,000 pounds of cement. My favorite constellation is Orion. You see this big misty cloud. That cloud is the birthplace, like a maternity ward for stars. It's of gas and dust and fire, like it exudes out, and I can look at it every night. There's so much out over there, and there's so much happiness. We've got so much to learn and know about and respect nature and its environment. So for me, that's priority in my life.
Well, it's a great night for her to look through her telescope up north. Down here, not so much. As for Toronto, the rain we've seen on and off through the day seems to have cleared up for now. We had some fog a few minutes ago. It'll be warm tomorrow, but wait till you see where temperatures are going after that. Colette is back with everything you need to know after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Well, rain in Boston delayed the start of tonight's Jays game. Aaron Sanchez looking to avoid a franchise record 10th straight loss. Rafael Devers, though, not doing him any favors. First, this solo home run in the third, then a two-run double in the fourth, put Boston up 4-1. Fifth inning, though, Teoscar Hernandez trying to keep the Jays in the game. His second home run of the game cuts the lead. And watch this monster of a shot. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. knocks one over the Green Monster in the eighth. That cut the lead. Boston would hold on, just winning 5-4. And Toronto FC taking on the New York Red Bulls at BMO Field. Josie Altidore with one of the best TFC goals of the season right here to take an early lead at the 6th minute. 24th minute, watch this. Richie Laria streaking towards the goal. He's brought down by Kamar Lawrence. It's a yellow card. Buzzello takes the penalty and scores into the bottom corner. Second half, it's 2-1 when Josie Altidore's pass goes errant. Ashton Moran stays on it, takes it away, won't give up. Does it all by himself right here. Toronto holds on for a 3-1 win. Colette is back with her extended forecast. So Thursday's shaping up to be an interesting day. We got a break from the rain and also a break from the humidity that's coming.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. That is the case for the GTA. I mean, there are many folks who are going to say, this feels kind of humid to me. Wait till Friday comes. That's going to be the real humidity factor. And I will just mention that for southwestern Ontario, it's kind of a different story there. The air mass has had a little bit of a break to it, but primarily you've been into the heat for several days now, and it really does continue. And to Thursday, pretty significant there. It takes till Friday till it spreads a little further east. So still have that heat warning there for you in southwestern Ontario. Patchy areas tonight with some fog. One reasonable day for the GTA because of the humidity, and then it's oppressive right across not only southwestern but into eastern Ontario as well. When I say oppressive, I mean we're talking about Humidex values approaching the mid-40s, and that's when it really becomes significant. It becomes actually dangerous, and you have to make sure you're hydrated and take lots of frequent breaks and things like that. Make sure you don't start feeling dizzy or whatever, so you're not getting into a situation with some heat stroke. The outlook for us after all those heavy rains and the flooding this morning, well, things are improving through the overnight other than a bit of reduced visibility with some fog. Most of the day tomorrow looks good. In fact, into the afternoon, we should have a significant amount of sunshine, but this, I've stopped it at 6 p.m., so you can see for southwestern Ontario, say towards Sarnia, first of all, and then back towards the Windsor corridor, you could get into some scattered showers and thunderstorms. It would be later into the overnight Thursday into Friday morning. We'll see that kind of rolling through the GTA earlier than, of course, though, for cottage country. And then a look at Friday, again, kind of late day, so afternoon into cottage country, that risk in the afternoon for southwestern Ontario, but for the city and the shores there of Lake Ontario, it's not until we get into the evening hours. And it's kind of that convective stuff. There's going to be so much humidity in the air, a lot of lift to the atmosphere, and we'll see some of those thunderstorms developing then on Friday. Overnight tonight, 19 to 20 for your lows, and a quieter night into southwestern Ontario. Humidex of 40, though, for you tomorrow, and the temperature 31 in Windsor and Toronto looking like this. Tonight, 20 degrees for the low, a bit of patchy fog. Tomorrow, kind of take advantage of it being a little more comfortable because of what is to come. And just to look at some of those numbers again, the feel-like temperature, we're talking about 44, Saturday 43, a little more comfortable Sunday, and then into Monday, a little more comfortable still. In fact, the temperature is going back towards seasonal values, Mike.
We're going to be looking forward to 30 as a low. That is something.
Isn't that something?
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Tenzin, and we're reporting from CBC News.
Hello, my name is Andrew, and I'm working at CBC.
So we're watching CBC Toronto News, and we'll be right back.
Well, even some of the big kids here at CBC got to take part in our CBC Kids Day. That's me and Mr. Orlando, our faithful CBC Kids security guard. And one of our favorite events each year is the Junior Journalists Contest. Take a look at these future CBC reporters.
This is one of my dreams to be talking to you.
This is Quentin, and I'm reporting for CBC Kids.
This is CBC.
Could you say hi, Mom? Hi, Mom. No?
Hi, Mom. What's the hardest part of your job?
Oh my goodness, that is a really good question. How old are you?
4.5, but almost 5.
You're almost 5. That's why you're so intelligent.
My name is Andrew, and I'm working at CBC.
I like the way you say CBC.
And
you have fun.
And I'm doing the news in Toronto.
He's ready. Is that your favorite color?
Yeah.
It's your favorite color? And how old are you?
3.
And you're watching CBC News.
And I'm watching CBC News.
Haha, you're a star. Listen, Adriana, you've already got the anchor person pose. Your arms are, your back is straight, your shoulders are up, and you look like you're ready to do the news. Are you ready to do the news?
Today at CBC Kids, I got a tattoo outside. It's a picture of a whale tail. It's right here.
A little show and tell. That's good reporting. Yeah, talk about it and show it. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. And I also watched a little puppet show at a stage over there, and it was really fun. And I also got to dance and play with my parents.
You are ready to report. That was pretty good.
Good job. I hope they saw it at 6 o'clock because it's past their bedtime right now. Well, day 2 of CBC Kids takes place tomorrow. Matt Galloway will be hosting the Junior Journalist section. It's even a concert by Sharon and Bram in the afternoon. That's our newscast for tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow night at 11.